Now I look at my company and I can see how the company that I kept, the company that I had, reinforced a certain perspective that kept me where I was. And this is not a slight to anybody that was in that company. If anything, from their point of view, I was also part of that company that reinforced the perspective of their life that kept them where they were.
Sit back, relax, and chill. Grab a glass of wine or a cup of tea, 'cause you're listening to NoTable Talk.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Otumba, and welcome back to my podcast, NoTable Talk, a podcast where I break my tables that you may be able to resonate with as well. If it's the first time watching, listening, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. If it's not your first time, thank you for coming back. I appreciate everyone, regardless of whichever side of the line you fall on. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I always enjoy recording these episodes. I always learn a lot when I record them. And the process to even record them, I enjoy it the most. Being introspective, being able to think, being able to kind of reminisce on lessons of life, really. Lessons of life. On that note, I want to say, I guess, you know what? Let's get into it. That last line I just said, it just made me remember a line that I heard this week. I was listening to a podcast and this person said that life is lived forward and understood backwards. And I thought that was very, very interesting, especially with how applicable it is to my life now. I'm learning a lot, especially when I cast my mind back and I think of past experiences. I think of my actions, the effects of my actions. I think of the mindsets that I had that informed those actions. And I realized that life is indeed lived forward but understood backwards, especially when in the moments of living life, I could have had whatever reason to make certain decisions. I could have had whatever outlook I had at the time, whatever perspective I had at the time. I could have possibly even been thinking I was doing my best, thinking in the best way. But in a lot of those scenarios, when I look back and I connect certain dots, I'm given the opportunity to understand things better, especially when I have the opportunity to see the results of my actions. I have the opportunity to see the results of my perspective and how my perspective shaped my thoughts, shaped my feelings, shaped my reactions and actions to certain things. So I am able to understand things a little bit different. I realize that hindsight is a very, very powerful tool because it gives you the opportunity to learn from experience. You learn from experience. You have the opportunity to make certain changes. Even though you can't go back to change the past, but you can make adjustments now for a better future. So just that line I said really made me remember that quote I heard on the podcast. And I thought that was important to bring up because it could actually be a very, very brilliant and beautiful segue into what I thought about talking about today, which is really perspective. I'll read how the dictionary defines perspective. I think that's a very, very important thing to note. It says, perspective is a particular attitude toward or way of regarding something, a point of view. A particular attitude toward or a way of regarding something, a point of view. So meaning we could all be looking at the same thing. And based on our perspective, based on our point of view, based on our attitude towards that thing, based on the way we regard that thing, we could interpret it in different ways. Not only could we interpret it in different ways, but based on our perspective, that same thing we're looking at could generate different thoughts in each of our minds. We could react to it in different ways. You feel me? Meaning perspective is so important. Perspective determines how we love each other. Perspective determines how we treat each other. Perspective determines how we react, how we respond. Perspective determines how we handle our environment, how we treat our surroundings. Perspective determines how we see ourselves compared to other people. All of that is channeled from perspective. And it makes me wonder, What feeds your perspective? What informs your perspective? What supports your perspective? What are you surrounding yourself with that is feeding you with a certain perspective, that is reinforcing a perspective that you have? You feel me? In thinking about perspective and thinking about how important perspective is, all those different variables that go into forming your perspective have been incredibly highlighted to me. For example, I'm growing to be very conscious of the company that I have because I realize how important company is to the perspective of your life, to the perspective of your situation. Even in me saying this, I'm immediately reminded of when I was in school. I've been talking about this part of my life a lot recently in recent episodes. I'm reminded of when I was in school, when I was struggling in school. Now I look at my company and I can see how the company that I kept, the company that I had, reinforced a certain perspective that kept me where I was. And this is not a slight to anybody that was in that company. If anything, from their point of view, I was also part of that company that reinforced the perspective of their life that kept them where they were. In this company, we all had similar struggles. In this company, not only did we have similar struggles educationally, we were also all involved in the same extracurricular activity, which was dance. In the same company, we were all also really not on a clear path to be better. Like I said, this is not a slight to anybody. If anything, I was also part of the company. Popular saying that birds of the same feather flock together. Maybe not necessarily because birds of the same feather recognize with each other and then just come together. But maybe when you constantly flock together, you tend to grow the same feathers. Maybe it works that way as well. You feel me? The company that I have, or the company that I had, I could see how it did not encourage me at all to make a beneficial change in my life in that point in time. I can see how the company that I had encouraged me to continue to indulge in activities that made my situation worse and didn't make it better. Still grateful for that company because, we're still in each other's lives in different ways. And thank God for growth. I've shared how, despite my journey, I have come out on the other side improved. I've come out on the other side. Not just improve, but improving. Improving for sure. I've also come out on the other side knowing better. I've come out on the other side having seemingly recovered. I have recovered, own it. I have recovered and continuing to strive for greater heights. And I can see how the same thing has happened to them as well. But I could also see how we really didn't help ourselves back then. So just even in me thinking about that and remembering that, it emphasizes how important company is. You see, in the last episode, I talked about accountability. And the only way you could have a system of accountability is because you are giving yourself a company that urges you to move forward, that pushes you to the next level, that sets a standard for you to be better. You feel me? The perspective we have in life is so important. It's so important. I have realized certain changes that I need to make recently in my life. It's funny because some of these things that I didn't even consciously learn. It's not like I consciously picked up a perspective. Some of these things could have been from experience. Some of these things could have been from upbringing. Some of these things could have just been from anywhere, really. It could have really been from anywhere. There are a lot of variables that inform your perspective. But one thing in my life right now, as I'm making certain changes, that is reinforcing me to have the right perspective that I have found is my company. Great company in which we share a certain outlook, a certain perspective. And that company reinforces that perspective, a perspective that urges us to not just be better, but that urges me to achieve things in the right way, that urges me to see myself in the right way, that urges me to see life in the right way. So I guess this episode, in the different directions it has gone, that have actually been largely unplanned, could was quite evident from the beginning is let us be conscious about ensuring we have the right perspective of life. We have the right perspective of our situations. We have the right perspective of ourselves. And let us be mindful that our company is one system that heavily influences and determines your perspective. Largely the people that you surround yourself with, but also the environment you put yourself in. Also the things you feed on, the things you watch, the things you consume, the things you listen to. I mean, I'm so glad you're listening to this podcast. But podcast, yeah. I mean, if anything, the energy I used to ask you to like, subscribe, share, and to thank you for watching and listening is because by the grace of God, I believe that listening to this or watching this gives you the right perspective on life. You feel me? Or it helps you to at least be on a journey to have the right perspective on life. As I share my personal stories, nothing should be taken for granted. And you realize that the more conscious you are about what your company is, it's almost like you're taking more conscious charge of your life. And the effects are tremendous. The effects are tremendous. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to this highly improvised episode. This highly improvised episode. I know that I assume that I may have gone in different directions, but I hope that you hear and see the gold in some of the things I said. So thank you guys for watching and listening. And I hope to catch you in the next episode. All right, have a good one. Peace.
Sit back, relax, and chill. Grab a glass of wine or a cup of tea, 'cause you're listening to NoTable Talk.